Hey guys, it's July 4th and I want to talk to you about freedom. This is a subject that is very close to my heart because in 1989, my father led a pro-democracy protest, and for that he was thrown into prison in China, and that's a story I'll touch on later in this video. I want to talk to you about this idea that freedom or liberty is an inalienable right. That's a really hard word to say because we all remember from the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence, it reads, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." And I think this idea that liberty is unalienable is an idea that is a little bit misunderstood today because a few lines on, Thomas Jefferson writes, "It is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security." And that's the point I want to hit on, is to provide new guards. So our founding fathers understood that it required that these inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness required people to guard those inalienable rights. Freedom and liberty are absolutely not inalienable, and I think this is perfectly illustrated by Robert Heinlein in his book, Starship Troopers. I love that book, highly recommend you go read it, because in there he says, if I come into your house with a gun and I take you hostage and I take you prisoner, what right do you have to freedom? What inalienable right do you have to liberty? Right? So the only way you're gonna get your rights back, the only way you're gonna get your freedom and your liberty back is if other men and women come and kick down that door and rescue you through use of force. And our founding fathers understood this. They understood that our inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness could only be maintained if there were men and women who were willing to stand up, who were willing to fight, to die, and to kill to maintain these freedoms, because they understood that in our real world, there are always going to be people who are willing to use force to take what they want, use force to deprive others of freedom, of life, of liberty. Think about the courage that it took to sign that document, which was essentially a death warrant for you. Think about that courage. Think about how much belief they needed to have in freedom, in liberty, in the pursuit of happiness. Think about that, how powerful that is. And I think about the courage that my father had to stand up against the communist government. He led a student protest on our college campus during the time of Tiananmen Square, and when the communist police came to shut it down, they asked, who's in charge here? And without hesitation, he raised his hand and he said, "I am." And then they took him to prison. He was in prison for over 2 years, and I believe that greatly shortened his lifespan because he ended up dying when I was in 8th grade as a very young man. And that is a model that I want to live my life by, to have a set of principles that I hold so dear that I'm willing to sacrifice my liberty and my life in defense of those principles. And having grown up in communist China, I really understand how valuable and how precious our freedom really is. I remember just chanting something I heard from my father, an anti-government slogan, and the look of fear in my mother's eyes as she shushed me because she was so worried that someone might overhear and then it might get us in more trouble with the government. Fear is the tool that tyrants use to keep their populations in line, and I hope that my own children will never have to experience that fear, and I am willing to fight and to die and to kill to preserve our freedom so that the next generation will never have to grow up fearing a secret police that's gonna kick down their doors and drag them out into the streets in the middle of the night. Because truly the freedoms that we have today are bought and paid for by the blood of our forefathers. They are bought and paid for by the blood of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, of all of those men who fought for our freedom during the War of Independence, of the men who stormed the beaches of Normandy. Their blood is what has bought the freedom that we get to enjoy today, and we should never lose sight of that. And that's a big part of the reason I joined the Army Infantry in 2009, because I wanted to have the skill set and the confidence to know that if the time ever came, I could stand up and fight back, that I would not have to just let tyranny roll over me and live in fear and live and see my liberties and the liberties of my neighbors and friends and family stripped away. The day that we take our freedoms for granted, the day that we feel like there is no cost associated to our freedom, that we feel entitled to our freedom, that is truly the day that our freedom becomes in jeopardy. And as Robert Heinlein wrote, something given away for free has no value, and that's why I'm making this video today, because I feel like for those who were born into a free country, who grew up in a free country, it's easy to forget just how precious that freedom truly is. I've lived in a society without freedom. I have seen firsthand how easily freedom can be stripped away from you. I have felt the impacts of having my father taken in by secret police and thrown into prison. And I would rather die fighting than to submit to tyranny again. Never lose sight of how precious our freedoms are. Fight for your freedoms. Fight in the courthouses. Fight in the ballot boxes. And if necessary, fight on the battlefield, because our freedom comes at a cost, and it's only through those people who are willing to stand up and to defend it against those who would take it away from us by force that that freedom can be maintained. And I'm going to leave you with one of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite men. Happy Independence Day.